Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another illustrious episode of the Tea and Crystals podcast. I am T.
And I'm Kristal.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are so happy to have you with us this week. We have an action packed episode for y'all. I'm so excited. Kristal has something new for us. We are continuing with the Florida Man stories. And then we have a nice Halloween surprise for y'all at the end. I don't know what it's going to be, but I am very, very excited. Krista, you can see how excited Krista is.
I love Halloween. I love fall is
Yeah.
my season, fall and winter. So all the holidays that fall during the next 3 months, I'm just like, yes, I'm so excited.
Isn't fall? So fall is lit, especially in the US because, it doesn't get like really cold really fast. Like it's very
Hmm.
gradual into
Hmm.
fall. Here it's like you hit September 25th and somebody then turned the freezer on blast. Like you don't ease into winter here. It's either spring, summer, or winter. There's no fall. But you can dress the best over there. Oh
Hmm.
my God. I love the fall. I love the fall in the US. I love the fall.
Me too.
But before we get things going, you already know, Chris, I have to ask you, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm doing really good. I got a gig on Saturday, which was fun. It was nice. It's nice to
Yes.
finally get back to work, even if it was only for a day. So,
Mm.
got to be on set. We were doing a commercial. Nice long day. And then we had another troll, which was fun to mess with just a little bit. We didn't mess with him too much. But we're
We
starting to
didn't.
build we're
We
starting to
didn't mess
build
with him, huh? Mm.
we're starting to build a nice little set so we can do a future episode and expose some of these
Yeah.
these chats that we do. So
hmm When I tell
yeah.
you, Crystal is going to be a subject of the petty. What is the Am I the Asshole one that you be reading? Petty
The
peeves or
petty
what?
revenge.
Petty revenge. This
Mm-hmm.
lady is going to be featured on a petty revenge one day. I promise y'all, because this lady here is funny. Okay, I can't tell y'all what the story is. We will tell y'all at a later date. But this
Mm-hmm.
lady is funny. So Crystal, should we get up into this thing?
Yes, absolutely. I'm so
Yeah,
excited for these
yeah.
stories.
So as I have said, last episode, it is spooky season.
Mm-hmm.
And who is more spooky than the Florida man himself? I mean, in my everyday life, Florida man is the boogeyman as far as I am concerned. So to get us started, I am going to read you fresh off the presses one of the newest headlines. This headline just came out today. Florida man found guilty of killing wife over her refusal to go on a home improvement show. Yeah, let that marinate. Let that marinate. These
Huh.
it's the titles of the articles that do it for me. They
It's
know what they do.
it's because it's like the most innocuous thing,
Mm-hmm.
and in the beginning, and then it ends in the most extreme way.
It's correct. And it's the fact that it's always Florida man, and then it's the craziest shit you ever heard in your life. Like, come on,
Right.
dog. So the story goes like this. A Florida man will spend life in prison after a jury convicted him in the 2018 brutal slaying of his wife after she refused to appear on a home renovation reality TV show, prosecutors said. David Trons, now his last name is spelled Tronnes. I don't know if that's Trones. I'm going to pronounce it Trons. So don't be killing me in the comments, y'all.
Mhm.
David Trons, 55, was found guilty of first-degree murder this week in the strangling and beating death of his wife, Shanti Cooper Trons, 39, in the couple's Orlando home. An Orange County jury returned the verdict Wednesday after deliberating for 5 hours at the conclusion of the 5-day trial. Prosecutors said in a news release. A judge immediately sentenced Trons to life in prison. Number one, you were guilty. If the judge didn't even catch his breath, they were like,
Mm-mm.
Judge, we find the defendant guilty. Great. life in prison. We are adjourned.
Right.
Like
Yeah, because usually
you
they do like a you're gonna come back here for sentencing.
exactly. You get
That
to get
judge was
your
like, no.
affairs in order,
Mm-hmm.
decide on your next moves and everything. Usually it's a couple months, usually until you get sentenced, but they sent this man to jail immediately. So jurors determined Cooper Trons was killed on April 24th, 2018 in the couple's house after a dispute concerning home renovations. Tron spent thousands of dollars on renovations and had hopes of appearing on the reality television show Zombie House Renovations, prosecutors wrote in the release. This led to the couple experiencing problems in the marriage. Cooper Tron's refusal to appear on the show upset Trons to the point that it led to her murder. During the renovation of their home, Tron slept in the garage while the victim slept in a one-bedroom studio on the property. They had some money.
I
Cause why do you have a studio on the property?
And it's not like you're not on the show. She just doesn't want to appear with you. So you're
Eh,
still getting the experience of the show.
and why were you spending the money before you were on the show? Something's not adding up for me.
Mm-mm.
Evidence presented during the trial, prosecutors said, showed the victim was killed in the bedroom and Trons attempted to clean it up prior to the police arriving on the scene. Trons claimed he found his wife in the bathtub after spending the day cleaning and walking his dogs, prosecutors said. Spending a whole day with your dead wife in the bathtub and you never thought, where my wife at this whole time?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. But a medical examiner, prosecutor said, testified facial injuries, blood evidence, and bruises on the victim's eyes proved she was killed. Prior to being arrested, Orlando Police Department investigators said Trons showed little remorse during his interrogation. Detectives arrested Trons 4 months later and charged him with murder. Trons, who has been incarcerated at the Orange County Jail since his arrest, was remanded to the Florida Department of Corrections after being convicted. Crazy.
That's insane. I mean, I'm glad that, he was convicted and that case is it's not like something it's not a big mystery that case is put to rest, but
Hmm.
what is in this Florida water? Like
Can you imagine being angered to the point of murder over the fact that someone didn't want to go on a reality TV show called Zombie House Renovation? I'm trying to figure out what the hell is a zombie house renovation?
Well, and I was just about to say, and it's not even like it's a reality show that we recognize. I've
Mm-hmm.
never heard of this show. I mean, obviously, it's probably a seasonal show, so it's not something but even past season, like this has to be the very first season they're doing. And just because it's you know, maybe it's going to series or whatever. It doesn't mean it's going to be good. It doesn't mean it's going to make any sort of waves or make any money or anything like that. Like
Right,
it's,
and I'm trying to figure out why he spent the money on the renovation prior to being on the show. Like,
yeah,
did he get an offer and they were like, "Hey, you put up?" I thought the whole point of going on a renovation show was the fact that some of the renovations were covered.
right. I thought so too. I mean, I knew it wasn't all covered. I knew for
Yeah,
some renovation shows but I always thought there was some sort of allotted budget. That's why
yeah.
when you see a renovation show, they're typically only like one or two rooms. Like it's not your
Mm-hmm.
whole house or something like that because you only
Exactly.
have a certain amount of money you can work with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't
Speaking
know.
of which, that is the come up. If you buy you a house for kind of the low, and you got the
Mhm.
renovation budget for like 2/3, maybe half of the house,
Right.
and then you can get on one of these shows and get the other half of your house renovated for the low. Like that's kind of the
But you
come
know
up.
what? I would be careful with that because and not speaking from experience, I have not worked on a
Mm.
show that was a renovation show. But there are plenty of forums, articles written from people who have been on these shows who have had their houses done and they don't hold up very well.
Mm.
It's not always the best work. Cuz at the end of the day when it comes to TV shows, we just need you to look pretty. So, if it
And
looks good, that's all that matters. And there's a lot of ways to make something look good without it being like real.
there's a very, very popular home renovation slash makeover show when we were young.
Hmm.
If you catch my drift, because I
I
don't want
think
to
you're,
say no names.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah.
I ain't trying to get us, literally
Hmm.
canceled
Right.
before we get off the ground. But that's the one that I think of the most when you mention like
Hmm.
people complaining after the fact of things weren't up to code, or
Yep.
they ended up having to pay a lot of money for portions of the homes or taxes or different things like that, where they ended up not even being able to keep the home.
Hmm.
So that is absolutely valid what you're saying.
All right, y'all. We're going on to my story. It's a
Mm.
new segment that we're introducing. And honestly, I don't feel like it's that much of a stretch after he introduced the Florida man segment,
Mm.
because it must have been fate, because I literally found this article like the very next day, and I immediately was like, "Oh, there's a lot of stories like this out there as well, and I think it would make a good little segment." So, this is going to be called the Karen Chronicles. And I'm
Ooh.
really excited because it's going to be about obviously Karens and some crazy stories about them. This one in particular is an entitled Karen story.
Mm.
Uh, so
Can
the
I give a
title
short
is,
disclaimer
yes,
before you go into this? Because I know Karen is a trigger word nowadays.
it is.
And I want you all to know, if you go in them comments and get to hooping and hollering, oh, the fact that we're talking about Karens, a hit dog gonna holler. Cheryl. Cheryl. I want you to look in this camera. Cheryl. A hit dog gonna holler. So if you go in them comments talking about, why are we talking about Karen? Cheryl, don't make me put you on blast for the internet. Please don't make me put you on blast, because I will put up a wanted poster that says wanted Karen in progress, and I will plaster your Facebook picture on it. Okay? Don't play with me. Play with
let
your
me tell
mama.
you, let me tell you something. Okay. First of all, I will say, just because they're named Karen, I feel sorry for Karens, because, it was a
Because my
very lovely
aunt's
name.
name is
And
Karen.
right, it's a very lovely name. And I know it's gotten a bad rap, and we're not helping in any way. But, we know that doesn't mean, literally all Karens. Uh, but also at the same time, if anyone who's listening to these stories as we bring them forth, and you find yourself relating in any way to these people, you might want to check yourself. Because if you're sitting here like, I agree with her, she should have done that. That makes sense. That's something I would do.
Pastor Crystal is giving y'all another word. Pastor Crystal come out on every episode, and I'm about to get up and start across this room. I'm about to start hooping and hollering, speaking in tongues across this room. Go on ahead. Tell us about Karen.
Okay, so this one is entitled Karen Neighbor Made Plans for Her Guests to Use My Driveway Over Christmas.
I'm going on mute. Mm-mm.
Okay. I came home to find a note of Karen Neighbor hand posted into my letterbox. It wasn't in an envelope. I had problems with this Karen over my driveway since I moved in my house in February 2021. First time I met her is when she tried to tow my car out of my driveway. She had a deal with the previous owner of my house, who didn't drive, to let Karen use the single car driveway. But since I'm the new owner, that deal is over. Had problems with her still parking in my driveway, and it stopped after I got it towed. After I extended my driveway to fit two cars side by side, still in front of my house, not going over any property lines, Karen demanded the second spot of my driveway. After I said no, she had the nerve to still go ahead and use that second spot. She stopped again after I towed it again. Now, on to this note from Karen. In her note, she doesn't ask to use my driveway for her guests. It says she already arranged for her guests to use my driveway from the 20th December to the 2nd of January. She basically told me park on the street so her guests can use both spots. Also, not to unnecessarily tow their cars. I just been over to her house and reminded her it's my driveway. She has not got any authority to let others use my driveway. Instead, I will call tow trucks the second I see unauthorized cars in my driveway. She said she will call the police. I just said, go ahead, send the police to my house when they turn up. I got a Ring doorbell that got footage of me telling Karen no on her using my driveway in the past. Also got cameras on my driveway with footage of the past problems with her. I still got the note about her guests using my driveway. She has called the police on me for parking in my own driveway, and both times I towed her car off my driveway. I came here to rant this out before I go on a date with my girlfriend. I got I got to get this angry mood out somewhere. Edit. Thank you everyone for your support. I just thought to get my anger out somewhere before going out with my girlfriend. I wasn't expecting so many upvotes and comments. I'll start reading the comments now. I had my phone on do not disturb while I was with girlfriend and forgot to undo do not disturb. I'll reply to the comments ASAP.
Let me tell you. Oh, see, Karen wouldn't have had a chance with me. Karen would have came out the house. Karen would have had one time too many to park in my yard, especially when I extended my parking space. And I would have came outside and she would have woke up to a charcoal pile. Cause I'm setting that bitch ablaze. Are you out of
Mm-hmm.
your mind? You gonna tell me I need to park on the street because my driveway is reserved for your guests from the 20th of December until when? The 2nd of
The 2nd of
January?
January,
The
yeah.
2nd of January. Oh, okay. So you
Mm-hmm.
just giving me kindling for my log stove because I'm setting every car that park in that yard on fire. You wouldn't have to worry about having no more friends
Mm-mm.
because I'm pouring chocolate syrup over the seats. I'm letting my cat go in there and rip the upholstery up. I'm
Mm-hmm.
calling the tow man. I'm calling AAA. And I'm gonna tell him, you know what? AAA, I left my car jack. Can you take these four tires off this car and set them in my garage? Because I've been mean I need to I'm rotating my
Mm-hmm.
tires and I just
Mm-hmm.
don't have a jack at home. Yeah, all six of them in the yard. Yeah, that would be so helpful. And matter of fact, take the batteries out too. Yeah, and you can take them with you. You can take them. I don't need them no
I
more.
don't need
Go
it
ahead and
anymore.
recycle them. You got a recycling program? Absolutely. Go ahead and recycle the batteries.
Mm-hmm.
Karen is out.
You
This
know
done pissed
what?
me off.
It's funny too because this isn't the first time I've read a story very similar to this where someone has moved into a new house and the previous owner had a deal with the neighbor that allowed them to use their driveway. And even though there's a new owner who is now using their driveway, unlike the previous
Mm-hmm.
owner, the neighbor still demands to be able to use those spots. And in fact, one of them was like, you know, went angry on the person because she was like, I can't walk that far. It's too far for me to walk. And she made her park her car down the street and she would see her like a half an hour later huffing and puffing trying to come back up this walkway to get to her house. Uh, you know, me personally, depending on how big the because I think for this picture that particular story,
Mm.
their driveway is was a decent size. If you had just been nice, if you weren't feeling entitled, if you had
Mm.
just come to me and said, "Hey, I don't have a driveway. I have to do street parking. I don't know how many cars you own, but if there's room, would I be able to park my car there because it's very hard for me to walk up the streets?" Me
Mm.
being me would be like, absolutely. We will figure out
Yeah.
a way that we can share this. I don't have that many cars. This driveway is big enough for the both of us. But when you're just like, if you come up to me ranting, raving, oh, this is my driveway, and it's like, no, this is my house. Like this is my driveway, and it's like, no, this is mine. We had a previous agreement with the owner, and it's like, well, now I'm the owner. You don't have an agreement now.
Because you don't have any. Do you realize you don't? He's dead, lady. Unless you
He's
finna go dig
gone.
him up and figure out what agreement y'all had, I own this house. And the fact, why am why should I park on the street but your guests
Right.
shouldn't?
Right. Right.
I'm trying to figure out the geography here. Like, are there lawns? Like, are they like the, because some neighborhoods the houses are stacked on top of each other
Right.
essentially.
Right.
So is it like one of them type of situations?
Yeah, I'm
But
not
I'm not
sure.
understanding, lady, how you calling the police on me for me parking in my yard and for me
Yeah.
not having your guests or you park in my yard. Like, why have the police not written you a citation? And I would make sure that every time you parked in my yard, you would be cited for trespassing. And anybody that park in my yard, this like, you know what? Because you know how I feel about them petty letters. This lady isn't petty enough
Mm.
because there would be a trespassing citation. Somebody would be in handcuffs by the end of Christmas Day. I ain't gonna hold you. Somebody's going to jail on Christmas and New
Yeah.
Year's Eve.
Yeah. I don't know how anyone could think they would win that. Like, I'm calling the cops because you won't let me park in your driveway. Who, ma'am, why would you think you would win that? What cop
Why
is
is she
coming
not
and
in
being like,
handcuffs?
or I guess sir, I guess this would be sir since he said girlfriend. I don't know. It could be ma'am. I don't know. But, why would the cops look at the owner of the driveway and be like, you got to move your car.
You,
You
you're
got to, it's there. They should be able to park there.
you're on my listen. We have to move on because this I could go on about this for days and days, but the more I go on, the more violent I get. So I'm
So
just
let this be known, audience. Things that will tick Timmy off: a
ooh,
good petty story, good petty revenge, a Karen entitled story, or something involving a wedding.
yeah,
Those three
yeah,
stories are some
yeah.
of his biggest triggers.
Because people who know me in real life, I am very animated on here, but people who know me in real life know that I am a very flatline person. I am
Mm-hmm.
very calm. I don't like a whole lot of riffraff, a whole lot of noise. And people can do things that I can internalize very well. But there are, like Crystal said, specific things.
This is why I'm making this face because it's reminded me. It's reminded
Oh,
me
I can't stand
there was
her.
one time. There was one time in
Mm-hmm.
particular,
Mm-hmm.
and this wasn't the first time something like this has happened. But when he
Mm-hmm.
says, "I can internalize very well," maybe to the
Oh
outside
God.
public, not to me. He can't.
Mm-hmm.
He absolutely can't. We
Mm-hmm.
went and got hibachi one time. And with hibachi, unless you got a big party, you're typically sharing the hibachi table with other people, other families. So it was just me and
Mm-hmm.
him. There was another couple there. And then there was a family that showed up. It was like a mom and dad. I want to say there was at least two kids and a baby. And just like any family with kids, and mind you, this is before he had kids himself and stuff like that. Anyone with kids that young and that baby, it is wild, and it is this man, and it's nighttime, mind you. This man was
Oh
sitting
God.
straight up with sunglasses on, and his face is like,
And you know what's crazy? I know exactly what you're talking about. It was down at the I can't remember what it's called, at Newport News, the little
yep,
center place.
yep,
I know, yeah, I know exactly, and I forgot all about that because I was like hibachi place, but then when you
mm-hmm.
mentioned the sunglasses, I was like, yeah,
And I think I even leaned over to him and said something like
I kept the sunglasses
you're so
on,
mad
so
right now. And he was like, fuck, I can't stand.
but I didn't. But see, the difference is I didn't say anything.
That's true.
It may read, you may be able to see
Mm-hmm.
what's happening, but I'm not going to vocalize it unless you push a specific button,
Right.
and then it's like, okay, it's DEF CON.
Yeah.
you know, whatever. It's the
And
highest
mind
one.
you, they were perfectly nice, you know. They just had rambunctious
Yeah.
kid, and there was two young kids and there was a baby, so there's it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
rambunctious. But we were
Mm-hmm.
also younger, and like I said, he didn't have kids, so he didn't understand
Exactly.
either.
And I
But
didn't make
yeah,
it obvious to anybody but you. Like
yeah.
anybody else that was
It
sitting there
was
would have been like,
is he
okay, he's
okay?
stone faced. Like,
Yeah.
right. But I wasn't huffing, I wasn't puffing, I
Mhm.
wasn't, you know, I was
Rolling his
chill.
eyes even though his sunglasses were on. Yeah, he
Let
wasn't
me
doing
tell
any of
you
that. He was
something.
just
It was it
stone just
was it was giving Ray Charles up under them sunglasses. Like, I am going to hell
so
for that. Chris, I saw
this
you
is
trying not
this
to
is
laugh.
this is where I appreciate the yin and yang because I know where I'm going.
You ain't shit for that. Mm-mm, not my savior.
uh, so
Ooh,
I know
are you
you
ready to get
have
into?
yes,
Yeah,
an am I the
yeah.
asshole story
I sure do. Krista, we have been cutting up, and we are only halfway through this episode. we we
because
have been cutting up.
we knew we wanted to include a good amount of stuff in here, especially because this is
Hmm.
when people start to see this episode. This is probably right around or right at Halloween. So
Yeah, yeah. Whew, okay. So I have an "Am I the Asshole" for us. I'm excited to share this one because I'm excited to see what Crystal has to say about this. Because this has to do with sibling rivalries.
ooh.
This one is
You know I'm
called
good with a good
Child.
sibling rivalry
No, I won't go put your
from
business out there.
experience.
No, I won't go put your business out there. This one is entitled "Am I the Asshole for Canceling My Birthday Party Because My Parents Cut My Sister a Slice of My Custom Made Cake the night before my party when she cried for it?" Custom made cake reminds me, Crystal, Aaron. What is the name of Aaron's cake company?
I think she actually had to change her original name because I think someone else technically had it.
Mm,
Um, so I think she
okay.
just goes very simple, and I think it's designs by Aaron, and Aaron
Designs
is
by Aaron.
spelled Erinn, which
Because let
I
me tell
will
you,
link on
yeah,
this video.
we will link it in this episode in the
Hmm.
podcast notes as well as on the YouTube page
Yep.
and probably our socials wherever we post it.
Yes, because if you are local,
If you
she
are in the
makes
757/804,
She makes beautiful, beautiful cakes. She makes
mm-hmm.
cup. I mean, she bakes anything. She's also a very good cook.
Yeah,
So people can also hire her as a like a chef or something like that. She does. Her mom runs a daycare center in her home, and one of the things they do usually every season is they will do fundraisers, and whoever wins the fundraiser, usually they can get like a 3-course meal or a 4-course meal that's
mm.
prepared by Aaron in your home and stuff like that. And me and my mom got that experience one time. It was amazing. She's such a good cook.
She is amazing. Like
Mhm.
she has given me, she don't even know, but she has given me one of the best gifts I have ever received on a birthday.
Mm.
She made me this beautiful. I love SpongeBob. I have loved SpongeBob since I was a kid. I love SpongeBob to this day. And I also
Mhm.
love Hennessy. And she made me a beautiful, I think it was a 2-tier
Mhm.
SpongeBob cake. It had SpongeBob, Squidward. Shout out to my wife because my wife had it commissioned for me. Uh, it had SpongeBob, Squidward. I think it had Sandy Cheeks, Patrick Star. It had the Pineapple House, and then she
Mhm.
had little airplane bottles of Hennessy like stuck in it, and it was the one of the best gifts I've ever received
Mhm.
in my life. It was immaculate. If you all live in the 757/804, I don't know what the North Carolina area codes are, but if you live, near Virginia Beach or anything like that down in North Carolina, please, please hit Erin up. Have her design. Crystal has shown me other cakes she's done,
Mhm.
gorgeous. And if they taste
Mhm.
half as good as mine, they custom flavored my cake. And when I tell y'all, I couldn't. The flavor I imagined in my head, she made it so much better. So much. I didn't know what I wanted until I tasted it, and
Mm-hmm.
she made it. So please go hit Erin up because she's everything.
She's so talented. Yes.
Yes. So the story goes like this. My sister, 11 female, is the miracle golden child.
You
She
said
all
11.
11.
Let me turn this off.
Hey yo, Kristal, chill out. I have to read this story.
I
Kristal
thought
said,
I
"Let
thought
me
when
turn."
I for sure thought this was like a 3-year old, a 4 or 5-year old. Like I thought this was 11.
I am
No,
Kristal.
no,
It was
you're
the
not the asshole. I can tell you. You know, 2 sentences in. No,
it's the
11.
pure disgust in your voice when you said it. You was like 11. Yo, Kristal, chill. You cutting up on this episode, yo. You are cutting up. Ooh, we. Okay, let me get it together and read this letter. So, my sister, 11 female, is the miracle golden child. She always gets whatever she wants. My parents are always trying to please her and make her happy. They always make a big effort on her birthdays and do whatever it is that she asks for, but they can barely remember mine, and they are always conveniently broke. They put in quotes. This year, I wanted to enjoy my birthday, so I babysat and even mowed lawns to make this possible. My birthday was a few days ago, and the party was scheduled for the day after. I have been planning for weeks and invited all of my friends. I bought the food, snacks, and drinks and picked up my custom made cake, which I was really excited about. It was just perfect. The night before the party, I noticed that my cake, which was in the fridge, had a huge slice missing. When I asked my dad, he shrugged and nonchalantly said that my sister was crying for it and it was just a small piece of cake. My friends wouldn't even notice. I yelled at him asking why would he do something like that when it wasn't even bought with his money and that my sister could have waited for the next day. This made him angry, and he went on a tirade about how I think I'm adult because of my stupid party, implying at the fact that I did everything myself and did not ask them for anything. First of all, stupid party is disrespectful. I ended up calling it off because I was not able to change the location last minute as I didn't have the means to, and I was so hurt. I didn't want to host uh, at home anymore. One of my friends told me that calling it off was an overreaction and that I could have gritted my teeth and gone through with it at home rather than canceling hours before. And before we get into reactions, I do want to read the first comment, which kind of did it for me. This person said, not the asshole, but next year, see if you can have your party at someone else's house. Don't invite your family. Next time something happens like this, just show the cake the way it is. Let people ask and let your parents answer. Kristal, what say you?
You know what? I do agree that she should next year she should try to find somewhere else to host it.
Hmm.
But I don't think from the way it sounds how these parents are, I don't even think showing the cake as it is and trying to I think her parents would still shrug it off and like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. She just had a piece. But I will say to me, I think the fact that you did do this all by yourself is
Hmm.
probably exactly why your father blew up at you the way he did because you didn't need them in any way, and this made them mad. Um, but I will say, to these parents who do this stuff, this is a prime example of why your kids go either low contact or no contact with you in the future. She can't do it now because she's living in your house. And did she say which birthday this was? How old is she?
No, she
Okay.
didn't, or they
So
didn't. I don't know if they said it was a she. I'm a.
I don't know. For some reason I just pictured a girl.
And you know what? I pictured the opposite. I pictured a boy,
Hmm.
but one of the girls. But
Yeah, so
you know,
well, whatever, depending on the age, they could, if this was, I don't, it doesn't seem like this is an 18th birthday. I feel like maybe they still have
no,
another few years.
yeah,
um
this is between 16 and 18. I would say.
yeah, I would think so too. Or maybe even as low as 15, because maybe they're not quite old enough to get a job, which is why they had to do things like mow the lawn and stuff like that. Or maybe this was 15 going into 16, so this could have been their 16th birthday
Yeah,
too.
because I was thinking they
Something
were
like
old
that.
enough to drive. Because they said that they got all the snacks, they got their custom
Mm,
cake and all that stuff. I'm
right,
like, okay, this person must have some transportation if they did
right,
all this stuff without their parents, you
right.
know. But I mean,
Yeah, but
maybe they have a friend that
regardless,
drives.
yeah, regardless, it doesn't sound like they can leave the house anytime soon. But
Hmm.
I will not be, from the way that they're acting towards this person. I very much doubt that. I don't know. People are funny when it comes to their parents. Their parents can tend to do a lot of bad things to their kids before the kids
Hmm.
are able to cut them off in any sort of way. But I hope that this person will at least, at the very least, go low contact because the parents deserve that. I I I hate it when parents have some sort of golden child. It's so
Yeah,
why did you ever have multiple kids if you could only put all of your attention on one of them? But
yeah.
11, 11,
11,
good god, I really
11.
thought this child was like 4 or 5 or something like that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're
When I,
this child, this is the child that's gonna grow up because they got everything they wanted, and they're gonna bleed you dry. And when you
yeah,
can't give them any more stuff, they're gonna leave you.
I think it's so wild, like that you alluded to, like those family dynamics where sometimes it's not even. You know what? Actually, maybe it does have to do with the younger child
Mm,
because I'll explain as vague as I can, but I have seen experienced where even peripherally, like people really act weird about that youngest child for some reason, and people sometimes will act on behalf of the youngest child. Like the youngest child won't even do anything themselves, but people will act on behalf of the youngest child, where the youngest child will be like, bitch, I ain't even want this, like why are you doing all of this? But it really is a thing with younger children. Now for me, you know I feel like there must be a big gap between the 11-year-old and however old this older sibling is. And I think as an older sibling, sometimes you can become like jaded because you didn't get to experience the things that happened for you at their age because you were their age. Like they're not going to remember this shit when they get, you know, so much older. Like, so you kind of look at the things that they have. Technology has advanced, party planning has advanced. Things may look brighter and bigger to you now just off GP because it's a different day and age. Bitch, you ain't been 11 for 5 or 6 years you know so of course, and your parents may have leveled up, they may have got more money in that time. And I think it's really about, for me, my little sister is 4 for almost 5 years between us, I was never, jaded behind her. Like that was never a thing for us. But I feel like that's because my family did a really good job of making like birthdays especially inclusive. So I think for, like you said, I don't know. We may differ on this one because I don't think it's severe enough for them to really distance themselves from their parents.
Well, it's maybe not this one instance, but because
Mm-hmm.
they're saying this is something that continuously happens,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they might be a lot of little instances, but building up over years and years where you're just feeling very neglected over time. Like I said, at I feel like a low contact is needed at least for a little while so that you can get away, you can heal, you can, make your own uh make your own life away from being, with this family who has not treated you correctly. You know? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I'm not saying I just think every once in a while, depending on your family dynamic, if you have a hard family dynamic, sometimes stepping away from them when you get the chance is the best thing to be able to then include them later on in your life. If you want them to be in your life, I suggest that you at the very least take some time away when you get a chance. Like if you're going to college or something like that, take that time away from them. Allow yourself to you know grow and not have to worry about their opinions, their thoughts, what they're doing with whoever, if it's a younger sibling or whatever. And just be you. Just be, make friends, let them know who you are and be accepted for who you are if you were so stilted with this family. I think that's the best way to heal for some people.
You know what? I do agree with that. I think that, like you, just like you said, sometimes getting away from that situation and having time to reflect on it. I Because I don't want to say that sometimes you realize that the things that you were upset over aren't really that big a deal in the grand scheme of things. Because when you're young, little transgressions do seem like the entire world is coming down on you because those things are really important at that time. But as you get older, you realize, okay, these were the circumstances around that. I do feel like this person's parents are doing a shit job of communicating. you know Maybe the things that they want for their birthday are more expensive. Maybe little 11-year-old Susie, all that whole one is a unicycle, a tricycle, and some balloons and a cake. But you asking for a PS5 and the newest pair of AirPods. Like, oh, that's $1,000. Like, for your birthday. Like, we ain't got that. We spending $60 on Susie next week. Like, what you mean? So I think it's about perspective. I think that's why I say I don't know if it's like cut your parents off, but I do agree to take, like, because you know how we saying a few weeks ago with the people who needed to like cut their family off for a minute, to like that's a different level of severity than I think what is needed here. Like what you said, go to college, have your time away, keep the conversation, keep things to a minimum, as far as, but don't go out your way to cut off communication with them.
Yeah.
Just
And that
whenever y'all
time,
hit each other up, let it be a natural ebb and flow with
yeah.
it.
And to go with you, that time away might give you perspective, and you're right, and it
Hmm.
might show that maybe it wasn't as big as you thought it was at the time, and you needed that space to decide if it was or not.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you, but I will definitely say this person is not the
Oh,
asshole.
not at all.
But it's funny that you had mentioned earlier that people, especially siblings with bigger age gap, it is something about the younger kid that these parents tend to, because I actually knew someone who it used to drive them nuts because they were involved with someone who had a younger sibling that was it was quite a big age gap. I mean, like, I want to say they were nearly a teenager or were a teenager when they were born. So when this person was like, 11 or 12 years old, their mom was still doing things like cutting their food for them, and it used to drive this person insane. Like, why are you still doing this? Why? And the mom would just be like, she's my baby, this is why. And the younger kid is like, yeah, like, leave us alone. And it drove this person insane having to witness this, because they're like, they're too old for this, they're too old.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I see that. I think older siblings, and I will say this, even though I have an older sibling, like, forget him, whatever.
Yeah.
Older
Mm.
siblings then do tend to have a different parent than the younger sibling. It's kind of
Oh yeah.
inevitable.
Yeah.
The older parent in any situation, unless you're like a year apart or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
the older sibling, you're the one who's dealing with them parenting for the first time. They're learning
Mm-hmm.
everything from parenting you. They're
Mm-hmm.
probably in a different bracket, financial wise with you than they are with the younger sibling, like you said. So things just end up different.
I think that sometimes the biggest thing that drives a wedge between an older and a younger sibling, because it's very real. Like these kids just, if you really grow up, I think it didn't happen to me because I grew up a lot with my cousins and stuff.
Mhm,
Like, my closest two cousins, we grew up like we were brothers.
mhm,
And then it was my little brother and sister, who, my blood brother and sister. But we really grew up as a unit. So I got to see more, and we grew up on the same level because thank God our parents were, conscious enough to make sure that, anything that one got, the other also got. So there wasn't jealousy with us
mhm,
because we were together so much. They were very conscious of that. So I thank them for that. My cousin, I think it was for like his 10th or 11th birthday or something like that. He got a bike. I remember the feeling of him getting that bike. And I was like, damn, I don't even have I had a bike, but I didn't have a bike like that.
mhm.
Next thing they know, they was like, "Oh, y'all come outside." He and I got the exact same bike on his birthday
Aw,
at the exact same time
that's
because our
so
birthdays are
sweet.
really close together. It's like a month and a week apart or something like
Mhm,
that. So they were very conscious in that way of making sure that we were on par with things.
mhm,
And I think, but we were also closer in age. But I think parents kind of neglect that with the age gap.
mhm,
But in this case, if you have a kid that's a lot younger and you 17, 18, but your sibling is like 12, 13, 14, you not finna get the same, you have
mm-mm,
different priorities. I'm preparing you for adulthood while this one is just growing into their teenage years. You know what I'm
mhm.
saying? So the
Yeah.
priorities are different.
Mhm,
I'm paying your car note. That equals the PlayStation that they getting for their 13th birthday. You know what I'm saying? And I just think older siblings sometimes don't have that rationale or that lens on it.
and I will say, because I gave a little for the older sibling, but to advocate for the little siblings,
Hmm.
understand this, older siblings, younger siblings can't help how they're raised
Hey.
or how they're treated. And a lot of times, those younger siblings worship you.
Mm,
They just want your love and attention. So don't be so quick to dismiss that younger sibling, especially if you're not that far, because eventually when you're both going to hit adulthood at some point, you know. Eventually, that sibling may end up being your closest advocate later in life. When your parents are done dealing with you and they're tired of you and they just go, be off in the world or whatever, some of your closest companions ends up being your family, your other family, your cousins, your siblings, or something like that. So don't be so quick to dismiss those who are younger than you, especially if they're only by a few years, because while it seems large when you're younger, as you get older, that gap gets smaller and smaller. And these are the people that will be in your circle. And you want them to be in your circle. If they're not a toxic person, you want them in your circle for your life, because they're the ones who you're going to lean on when things get rough, when things get tough. They're the ones who are going to celebrate you the loudest, and be there for you. So, you know, I'm just saying. Just saying.
Come on, Pastor Crystal. And for those listening, you have a representative of both sides. I am the oldest sibling. Crystal is the youngest sibling. We have seen both sides,
Mhm.
and we both know how both sides feel. So
Mhm.
I think you can take what we say, with some authority, because we have been through it.
Right.
And we I feel like we have had different experiences
Yeah.
with our siblings,
Yes.
and we both know about each other's
Mhm.
experiences. So that's
Yeah.
that's why we talk with such authority on the
Mhm.
topic,
Right.
because we are familiar with each other's experiences and our personal experiences.
Mhm.
So hopefully, listen, if push gonna shove, bitch, go to therapy. Go to
Honestly,
therapy.
go to
Okay.
therapy. It does
Hopefully
work.
one day we'll have betterhelp.com/the Team Crystal podcast.
You're just gonna see a break in our podcast and be like, "This is
For
sponsored by."
real. Let me tell you, if we get that sponsorship, I'm coming back to this episode and I'm implanting that
It right.
ad into this episode. Absolutely.
Okay, y'all. So we have we're getting close to the end here. So we have a little bit more, just have a little thing we want to do. So because
Mhm.
it's going to be Halloween season, we thought it would be fun to read you just some short little scary stories that I have found on the internet. Now, I have a mixture. I'm only going to do a few of them.
Mhm.
Because we do have to get out of here. But I have a mixture of some that are actual confessions of
Mhm.
people, and some that are made up. And I'm not going to tell you which one it is. Get to
Ooh.
you guys get to be scared about which is real and which isn't.
Oh God.
So
I'm scared because Crystal know I don't like scary nothing. I don't
well,
like scary
some of them
movies.
are they're very clearly like a made up story. Like you don't they're
Okay.
not. But some of them you don't know. They might not be made up.
Okay. Let's get
So
into it. Spooky
okay,
season, y'all. You're
we
welcome.
love it. So this first one, we bought this rundown house, my boyfriend and I. While we started working on converting the kitchen into the main bedroom, I insisted on removing the old wallpaper. The previous owner papered every wall and ceiling in the house. It's a lot of work to remove, but it feels so good to get rid of it. The best feeling is getting a long peel, like when your skin peels after a bad sunburn, which is so true. It's such a good feeling. I turned it into a game, on the hunt to rip the longest piece possible. I noticed there was a person's name and date under a corner section of paper in every room. I couldn't help but investigate and Google those names. What I discovered left me speechless. The names all belong to missing people, and the dates matched the day of their disappearance. We notified the police who sent the crime scene. I overheard one of them say, "Yeah, it's human." Wait, what's human? Ma'am, where's all the material you removed? This isn't wallpaper.
And you know what? That's gonna be the that's gonna be the Ted Crystals podcast because absolutely not. No, Crystal, I am over here digging my nails into my hand. I can't handle this. I can't handle it. I can't handle. Crystal, I can't
This
handle
is
it.
it's oh, and it's dark time where it's at where you're at too.
That's what I'm saying. It's
Yeah, I
bedtime.
know it's bedtime for you. On to the
Absolutely
next
not.
story.
Oh
Story number
my
2.
god.
A father went to say goodnight to his son, as it was routine since he knew his son would have trouble sleeping if he didn't. It was sort of silent tradition between them, one he never forgot to attend. The room was dimly lit by the lamp, but the father could clearly see there was something unusual about the kid tonight. He looked the same, just with a huge grin that drew from ear to ear. You okay, buddy? He asked. The son nodded, still grinning before saying, Daddy, check the monster under my bed. The father chuckled and got on his knees to take a look. There, under the bed, was his son, his real son, pale, trembling, and scared to death. He whispered, Daddy, there's someone on my bed.
I'm scared. Kristal, I don't like this. I don't like this. This is
Don't like
scary.
this?
I'm scared. First of all, before we move on,
Mm-hmm.
you got to get back to the top of that bed and start decking whatever demon that is on that bed. And if you got this, when I say you got the, what's the falcon punt? Like you got to put everything. You're going to lose against that demon, but you have to put everything that you got in your life force in that first punch. Because if you don't
Mm.
land it, you're dead, buddy.
More
You
than
and your son.
more than likely, when he got up, it was probably gone by then. You know they don't stick around.
I'm so scared. I'm gonna have nightmares tonight. Okay, please, another one.
30 years ago, when we moved into a house, I heard my son say, It's our house now. You can leave. He has special needs and can and does talk to dead people. My 3-year-old granddaughter went over to my daughter's in law house for the first time, and she stood there looking at their fish in the aquarium. She pointed at a particular fish and said, That fish is going to die. My daughter asked her why she said that, and she replied, I see the X's in its eyes. They laughed it off, but the next day, that fish was dead.
That little bitch got to get out my house. I don't know where she got to go. You're not finna be protecting no deaths in here, bitch. Excuse me. You know what? Oh, I'm scared, y'all. She has to go. She is a common denominator. She has to go.
Now, for this next one, I hear quite a few variations of this one. So, maybe that means it must be true. I don't know. But this one says, When my daughter was about 3, I said to her, You are so wonderful. I'm happy to be your mommy. She said, Thanks. You were supposed to get a kid named Bruno, but I pushed him out of the way and took his place.
And you're going back where you came from. She would have got a punch straight to the forehead. You were supposed to, and she would have been out cold. We would have found my son. Okay, we would have found my son. What did you do with my baby? I don't like. I don't like. I don't like. Why do y'all got to do with little kids? That is the shit that scared me the most. I don't like one little kid. Cause listen, I love my child. But let my child get to talking. Listen, because there was once upon a time where I thought my child was talking to my grandfather who passed right before she was born because she used to look out the window like if we would be eating dinner something and I don't even think she was a year old at this time. She was teeny tiny and she used to look out the window and but it was like you can tell when little kids are just like babbling into space or
Mm-hmm,
when little
mm-hmm.
kids are like babbling to something. And she would like look out the window and babble to something. In one of the first songs that she ever like danced to, like she actually caught the rhythm and danced to, was a James Brown song that my grandfather loved. It was his favorite song. My wife and I were talking about it. And I was telling her how my grandfather used to, dance around the house and how he used to do the hoops and hollers of James Brown. And we played that song for her, and she immediately like she wasn't even 1 years old yet, and she caught the rhythm, was like dancing like to the rhythm. I have a video of it and everything, and I was like, we can't play we can't play this in the house no more because I'm not. Listen, I love you to life, grandfather, but I'm not opening no portals into my home. I don't do that. Mm-mm.
Mm. Okay, so I have three more. Okay. A daughter was in her room, busy with homework, when she heard her mother call her name. Dinner was ready. She jumped onto her feet and began making her way downstairs when suddenly a pair of hands grabbed her and pulled her into the laundry room beside the staircase. She panicked before realizing it was her mother, unusually weepy with bloodshot eyes. Don't go down there, honey. I heard it too.
Kristal, I ought to whoop your ass. I ought to whoop your ass. I, you gonna send me to bed like this? You gonna
Yes,
send me
because
to
I have,
bed like this?
well, not like this because I have two more stories. Here's the next one. My 4 year old said he wished people didn't have to knock to get in a house. I told him about doorbells and he asked me if we could install one on his window
Okay, I'm dumb. Wait, he said the knocks. Can we?
to
I
get in
didn't
the
get that one.
house, meaning that they're knocking on his window.
Read it again. Read it again. I'm
It
stupid.
says,
Wait.
my 4 year old said he wished people didn't have to knock to get in the house. He doesn't say on the door, he just says
Uh.
knock. He says, I told him about doorbells and he asked me if we could install one on his window.
Oh. And there it is. I
And there
was
it
I
is.
was too I was too dumb to get that one because I was like, wait, but why you need a doorbell on the window? But they was knocking at his window.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Okay, so
sorry,
here's the
sorry
last
about
one
it.
for the day before we wrap up. This one says, last night I was rushed out of my house by a friend to catch the opening act at a local bar's music night. A few drinks later, I realized I had lost my phone. I checked everywhere, even in the restrooms. Nothing. I ended up using my friend's phone to call mine. The phone rang twice. Someone picked up, giggled with a low and raspy voice, and hung up. I tried again, but nobody responded anymore. In the end, I gave up and headed home. I found my phone on the nightstand right where I had left it. And that is the end of spooky season.
I want y'all to know something. Kristal did this to me. This is personal. Kristal did this to me because I'm scared to death. I gotta go out. I have to go out there and brush my teeth before I go to bed. And I'm about to go to bed yuck mouthed. I'm about to run from this chair to my bed. I'm scared. I don't like
Mm.
I can't I hate shit like this.
There were other stories that I wanted to read. Like I Googled some short stories, but they were way too long. For short stories, they were way too long. But I would like to do an episode on, because it's like 10 parts.
Mm,
It's a whole Reddit story. I don't want
mm,
to give it away because I don't want people to go read it before we get a chance to it, but I'm going to bring it up to you later. But it's like there are some subreddits where people can either create stories or they can tell stories that you're not sure is true or not. But this
mm,
particular story, apparently, it blew up when it was posted. Um, but it's supposed to be a scary story, and we're, even though by the time we get to that, spooky season will be over. I think it'll be a fun little thing to do. Another thing I want to do is possibly, because if anyone
mhm,
has been paying attention to the news, Natalie Holloway, everyone who, if anyone remembers, she was missing after a trip to Aruba. But the man who we have all suspected for a very long time has finally confessed to her murder. So I would love to cover that story. So if you guys are interested in that, if you want to hear a full on episode story for our next true crime, let us know in the comments. Or if you have an idea of another true crime story you would like to let us know. But I think that's
Now
definitely a
that was
possibility.
the actress that went missing on the boat, right?
Mm,
Oh, sorry.
no.
Who was that? Who was the actress that went missing on the boat way back in the day?
I don't. I'm not sure.
Yes, somebody that's listening knows who I'm talking about. See, because I saw something about what you're talking about,
Hmm.
and I assumed that it was that lady, and I thought I was wrong. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not gonna read it. And now
Yeah.
you confirmed that I'm wrong.
Yeah. You're
So
wrong.
I don't know. I don't know
Yeah. No.
which
This was
what this is.
she was on a class trip with her. With it was like her senior year, and this was like their senior class trip to Aruba. and she ended up going missing. And it's been,
Mm.
God, has it been almost, it's been almost 20 years now, I want to say. It's been like 18 years.
Mm. I
But
have never
early
heard of this
on,
before.
yeah, early on, they had a suspect,
Mm.
and they very much believed the suspect either knew or they did it.
Mm.
And for the last 20 years, he's been in and out of the news. Um, and he was charged at one point, but charges would get dropped because there wasn't enough evidence and stuff like that. But for a long time, for almost the whole time, for almost the whole case, for nearly 20 years, people have believed this person either knew something or did something. And so it's only now in 2023, because I think this happened in 2005, but it's only now in 2023 that
Damn.
they were able
That
to
he
get the closure.
confessed.
Hmm.
That's
So
correct. And you
I
know
would love
what?
him
I'm
to
about
go
to go
into the nitty
down.
gritty.
Yeah, I'm about to go on YouTube and get all the tea.
Hmm.
So hopefully y'all would see that in the episode coming to you sometime, maybe in the new year.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Maybe in the
That'd
new
be
year,
fun.
yeah. Okay, well, Kristal, thank you for getting us in the spooky spirit. By the time y'all will hear this episode, it will just be a few days until Halloween. So I hope y'all have y'all costumes together. I want to know, leave a comment. What is going to be your costume for Halloween 2023? If you're having a couple costume, please post a picture of it in the comments, because I love the couple costumes. It's
Hmm.
so funny to me, like
Yeah, me too.
especially like the queen bee. I feel like people do that every year, like queen bee.
Mm,
I
yeah,
always love seeing this one. A couple ones you should avoid. Don't dress up as a rapper if you are a non-black person, unless it's Macklemore or Eminem. Do not dress up as a Native American, um,
unless you're Native
unless you
American.
are Native
And I mean, like, not the
American.
2% that Ancestry.com told you were.
Because a lot of black people like to. You know what? I'm not gonna go there because I'm not gonna get canceled by my own people. But y'all know how y'all do. Well, thank y'all for listening to another episode of the Team Christmas podcast. I have had too much fun,
Hmm.
if I do say so myself. I feel like we had some segments today that we are definitely gonna have to bring back around. Miss Karen Chronicle. Um, if you all would like to see our faces, our reactions, listen, Crystal and I was giving it to y'all this episode. We was giving it to y'all. You know what? Tyra Banks will be very proud of us because she used to be all about the faceography. She used to say smize. We was giving y'all faceography. We was giving y'all smize. Go on our YouTube page and see all of these reactions. See what the hell we've been doing, cutting up on this episode. Go and search T and Crystal Podcast on YouTube. Go find us on the TikTok at T and Crystals Podcast. Go on the Facebook. The Facebook has been Facebooking.
Yes.
The Facebook has been Facebooking. We're having a good time over there. If you want to send us an inappropriate private message on Facebook, feel
Please
free to do
do.
that
Because we're building an
at
episode.
okay. Because we would love to highlight you. If you want to get on the show, that's another app. If you don't want to come tell your business, come say something crazy in the DMs on Facebook. That's Facebook at Tea and Crystals Podcast. Go over on the Instagram, show us some love. We are always posting sneak peeks for the upcoming episode in that week. So go on Instagram and find us at Tea and Crystals Pod. If you want to tell us your business, if you have any stories that you want to share, if you have any Am I the Assholes, any Karen Chronicles, or anything like that you want to share, or if you have some feel good stories that you want to share with us as we move into the holiday season, because I think, we might want to share some really nice things. If you have any special projects or anything to help those in need that you want to share with us, that maybe we can highlight on the show, send us an email at teaandcrystal@gmail.com. That's TEAANDCRYSTAL at gmail.com. I have thoroughly enjoyed myself, Kristal. How about you?
Absolutely.
I know
Um,
that's right.
and usually I give a shout out for my cousin Vicky and her business, but because we did mention my very good friend Erin, just be sure to look at any of the descriptions and any of those sites that you see. We will link her page if you're in the 757 area. Check out Designs by Erin. That's ERINN, because she's super talented and she's such a wonderful person. But
So
yeah,
talented. And I can attest to you all firsthand experience. One of the best gifts I ever got, one of the best cakes I've ever had. Please go check Erin out. She is amazing.
yes.
Kristal, thank you so much for a great episode.
Thank you. And I hope you guys come back and see us next week.
Mhm. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye.
Bye.